Roughly a year ago now, I made a video called I bought the 5 best mice for Minecraft, and I would like to recreate that video as my recommendation to the best mice of 2025. Even though it's the end of 2024, just pretend it's 2025 already, it's like we're already there anyway. But in no particular order, let's just begin with the first mouse being the WL Mouse Sword X8K. This mouse actually recently came out and I bought it just because I was really intrigued by the look of it. But this mouse actually quite surprised me in a lot of ways I didn't expect. Like, this mouse only weighs 47 grams, which is the same weight the Final Mouse Starlight 12 weighs, or at least the older models of it. You can actually pick between 2 different mouse switches for this model. I personally just picked the Omrons because they haven't really disappointed me in the past, although I've heard that the TTC switches on this mouse isn't that good, but I haven't gone around to test that, so I can't say for sure. If you are going to use this mouse for 1.8, then I strongly recommend it. This mouse can pretty much do it all. It can drag click and double click like crazy. However, as great as this mouse is, I will say that the material, which is magnesium by the way, can feel quite stiff in the beginning of using this mouse, especially if you aren't used to this type of material. I've used quite a few magnesium mice and this feels around the same as them, just in my opinion a tad bit firmer than usual, which has caused me not being able to click on the mouse because of the pre-travel you can sometimes experience. And the elephant in the room, the most important part about this mouse is the shape. It is ergonomic, which means that if you are a left-handed person, this mouse is likely not your best option. And if you are very used to symmetrical mice, then you can get used to it fairly quickly, I noticed. But it will feel odd at the beginning because you are obviously trying to adjust to the new shape. One thing I think may be on your mind a bit, will you notice the holes on the side of the mouse? And in my experience, I didn't really at all. I know that some people find the holes on the mice quite annoying, but in my personal experience, I didn't mind them, nor did they cause any hiccups in my gameplay. One final thing I'd like to mention is the price. This mouse is quite expensive, so if you have the budget to spend on it, then go for it. However, I do see why it's priced the way it is. I unfortunately don't have the clip of me unboxing it, but it was very satisfying. But before I give this mouse a rating, real quick, make sure you subscribe. It's completely free and I'm trying to reach 100,000 subscribers, which is a childhood dream of mine. But anyway, let's give this mouse a rating. Generally recommended to people with large hands, stiffer material than usual, clicks are really good and have a bouncy feel to them, shape can get some time to get used to, not recommended to left-handed people, and not a budget-friendly mouse. Overall rating for this mouse in my personal opinion, 8.5 out of 10, just because the material is quite stiff and they left out the lefties, man, like come on dog. But now let's move on to the second mouse of this video, the Lamzu Maya 4K. I actually heavily slept on this mouse and ignored it for far too long. I saw that my good friend Armagon had used this mouse for ages, and he actually went as far to say it was one of the best mice he's ever used. And after using this mouse for a good few months, I can definitely see why. This mouse literally weighs somehow less than the previous mouse, coming in a super lightweight of only 45 grams, and it's also cheaper. You can probably get this mouse for around 100 to 120 USD, which is a lot, don't get me wrong, but you definitely get quality for spending quite a lot. Not to mention that even though the material on this feels like hard plastic, it honestly doesn't take away from this mouse at all. The switches on the mouse are called Huano switches, and if you are going to play 1.8 on this mouse, then again you wouldn't have a problem with double clicking at all. I did notice however that drag clicking can be a bit inconsistent, but it might just be me being bad at drag clicking. One thing I don't really like about this mouse is the fact that the side buttons can sometimes get in the way. I do find myself accidentally clicking them, and I don't really have large hands either. For some this can be a huge issue, but if you have medium to small hands, you're all good to go. On the topic of medium to small hands, this mouse is tiny, and if you are a person who tends to get sweaty hands quite often, on this material it can get quite annoying. Like for instance, playing with this mouse during the summer got really frustrating for me at least. It also doesn't have a big surface to click on like the Sword X, which can be a problem for some people, but not really noticeable in my experience. The shape of this mouse is symmetrical, so the lefties are finally included. I did say that the weight of this mouse was 45 grams. I just didn't really think about that some people may prefer their mice to be a bit heavier. So if you are a person who went from a 70+ gram mouse to a 45 gram mouse, then the difference is going to be massive. It will likely feel extremely odd for a while, but you will get used to it pretty fast. And I know this doesn't really matter, but if you're also a person who prioritizes aesthetics, then I'd say this one is more pleasing to look at than the previous mouse. It's a very minimalistic comparison if that's something you're specifically looking for. I'd probably mostly recommend this mouse for 1.9 PvP because of how light it is. It's good for 1.8 as well, don't get me wrong, but this mouse just screams 1.9 PvP to me. But let's finally give this mouse an official rating. Generally recommended to people with small to medium hands. Material can get greasy fast, but nevertheless very solid. Clicks are pretty good, however they do feel sort of hollow, but had no performance loss for me. Shape is symmetrical, so no one is left out, which I like. Not really a budget friendly mouse either, but really worth it in my opinion. Overall rating of this mouse in my opinion is a 9.5 out of 10. Only reason I'm not giving it a 10 is because of the price. If this was under $100, then this would definitely be the best mouse on this list for everyone. But let's move on to the third mouse mouse of this video, the Dera 8950 Pro Magnesium. I haven't really seen many people talking about this mouse. I'm not sure why that is, because this mouse is incredible. Not only is this mouse insanely lightweight, sitting at 54 grams, but I absolutely love the material and coating on this thing. It's still magnesium, yes, but the coating is still very different. It's much more matte feeling than smooth like the others. And it also has some cool micro shards that light up when you put them towards light, which makes this mouse stand out in my opinion. Now the switches on this mouse is something I think most people have heard of. It uses the Kale 8.0 switches, which are on most mice nowadays. Like for instance, all the Hati mice models utilizes this switch, and it has grown in popularity a lot in the recent years of mouse development. Even though the switch is used a lot in mice, it doesn't take away from the quality at all. The clicks feel really solid and are incredibly sturdy as well. You can click a total of 80 million times before this mouse gives up. One thing I did notice is that the clicks are insanely loud. You can't really use this late at night or anything without having other people hearing you click, and especially if you're going to be using this for butterflying on 1.8, then this mouse will definitely create a whole lot of noise. I think what I love the most about this mouse is the design of it. It's so sleek and clean, just about everything ties it together. The scroll wheel is also very unique. I'm not sure what the symbols mean, but since this mouse was created in China, it might be symbols for something within their culture. But let me know in the comments if you know what the symbols stand for. I'd love to know. A question that might be asked is that the click surface might be a bit too small. You see, Dera has holes on top of the click surface, but honestly, this hasn't really interfered with my gameplay at least. If you're a person who's going to use this for insane long drag clicking, then I can definitely see that being an issue. But if you're going to use this for 1.8 butterfly clicking or short drag clicking, then you'll likely have no issues. I noticed one thing under the mouse, that the material felt a bit different to the material on top. Under the mouse felt like more hard plastic, but I may be wrong there. Not that this had any significance in my gameplay, but it's still worth noting. One major flaw about this mouse, however, is whenever I flick it, the mouse tends to freeze up for a second or two. I'm not sure if this only happens in my model specifically. I tried downloading the drivers and everything for this mouse and it still happens. I even tried lowering the polling rate to 1000 and it still happens. I'm not sure if this only is my model, but this will affect my rating a little bit at least. And speaking of rating, let's do that now. Generally recommended to people with medium to large hands. Material is amazing and aesthetically pleasing to look at. Clicks are quite loud but still feel good. Shape is symmetrical so no one is left out. Not entirely budget friendly, but this has dropped in price a lot. You can get this mouse for around $120 if you do some research. Overall rating in my opinion, 8.8 out of 10. This is only due to the price being quite high and also due to the flicking issue I ran into. But let's move on to the fourth mouse of this video, which is the Porage Stormbreaker. Now if you've been watching my channel for a bit, you might already recognize this mouse, but for those that don't know much about this mouse, it's once again a magnesium material build and also is the most expensive mouse on this list so far, coming in at over 170 USD, which is quite a lot for some people. However, this mouse has the most color options out of all the mice I've gone over thus far and is overall pretty good for most things. It's sitting at a comfortable 53 grams and I didn't quite notice this at first, but it is quite of a small mouse. It's just slightly bigger than the Lamzumaya, so if you're a person with larger hands, I probably wouldn't recommend this. But what I do love about this mouse in particular is the placement of the side buttons. They are, in my opinion, placed perfectly and I've never in my life accidentally clicked on them, nor do they seem out of place. And obviously the most important part about this mouse being the shape. As I said previously about the Sword X, it will take some time to get used to ergonomic mice, especially if you're switching from a symmetrical one. I've seen some people saying that they can't really butterfly that good on this mouse due to the click surface material. In my personal experience, this hasn't really been an issue for me, but I will however say that the click surface material can get quite odd after using it for a while. It's also especially stiff feeling, but over time in my playtime with it, this has gotten easier to click on. I'd mostly recommend this mouse for 1.9 PvP because gliding and tracking with this mouse is insanely good because of how lightweight and how ridiculously good the glide is. It stands out to be a good mouse for nearly all games. If you're a person who's looking for aesthetics in a mouse, then I also heavily recommend this. The design choice on this is just incredible, and it's definitely clear that Porage made a huge impact when they came out with this mouse. Now unfortunately, this mouse does not count for the lefties, so again, sorry to them for not really being able to use this. The switches on this mouse does not disappoint at all. They got the Omron sorted switches, which doesn't last you as long as compared to some other mice, but sitting at 20 million clicks before this mouse just gives up, which is still pretty good. But maybe in the future, Porage will use some different mice switches that can last in the 60 to 80 million range. And it seems like I was right, because in Porage's upcoming model called Trinity CF, they are using a different mouse switch. Instead of using sorted Omrons, they are now going to be using the optical Omrons that can last up to 50 million clicks. And this will be the lightest mouse to date, sitting at only 37 grams, which is absolutely insane. But enough about that. Let's give a final rating of the Porage Stormbreaker. Generally recommended to people with small to medium hands. Material is good, just a hair too stiff for my liking. Clicks are loud, but not as loud as the previous mouse. Shape can get some time to get used to, not for left-handed people and not a budget-friendly mouse. Overall rating in my opinion, 8.9 out of 10. It would have been higher if the mouse was shaped for both right and left-handed people, and the material in my opinion is a tad bit too stiff. But let's move on to the fifth mouse of this video being, you know what, instead of just recommending one final mouse, I'm just gonna rapid fire review a bunch of honorable mentions, starting with Hati S Ace Stardust. Is one incredible mouse that I honestly haven't talked about a whole lot. Since I didn't really include a whole lot of budget mice in this video, this is a great first choice. Coming in at 58 grams, this mouse is honestly amazing for its price. I did go for the small version, and even though I have medium to large hands, I still love playing with it. It can also double click very easily, and generally do that with most premium mice today. You can expect paying around $60 to $80 for this, which is quite a lot for some, but way cheaper than some mice on this list. But now let's move on to the second rapid fire review being Porage Ambi Wireless. Again, if you've watched my channel for a bit, then you've most likely seen this mouse, but I will say if you are a person who likes lightweight mice, then this might not be the one for you. Coming in at 71 to 78 grams, but honestly one of the most customizable mouse I've ever seen. You can choose what shells you want, DPI button, side button, with or without honeycomb design. I mean, the list goes on. I love this mouse personally because of how overall good it is for everything, and it's also cheaper than the Hati S Ace, coming in at $60 if you order it from their website. However, do look at the price. If you are planning on putting in some different shells, then the price will go up a bit. I think that just about covers every mouse I recommend starting in 2025. Thank you for watching if you've come this far, and yeah, have a good day. Peace.